Good morning, everyone. So today's lesson is just a quick refresh on how to solve one and two-step equations. So let's go ahead and get started. Let's remember what the purpose of an equation is. So in algebra, we have variables, and those variables usually have some unknown value. When it comes to solving equations, we want to figure out what that unknown value means. So we're going to do it by getting some general ideas going. So remember, you have to get the variable by itself in order to find the answer. And what you do to one side of the equal sign, you do to the other side. Reason why is we want to keep the equation in balance. Think like a balance. You add to one side of the balance, you have to add to the other side of the balance in order for it to level out again. So again, our goal is to keep an equation in balance, and even though the left side may not look like the right side, they can still be equal. All right, let's go ahead and get started with what are the tools we're going to need in order to solve an equation, specifically today, a simple one-step and two-step equation. So we're always going to check, is there something we can add or subtract to both sides to eliminate a number that is being either added or subtracted. So again, our first goal is to always undo any addition or subtraction. If there isn't anything to do, if it's just one step and there's no addition or subtraction to undo, then we would undo multiplication and division second. So these are our two very general steps. So again, always check for addition, subtraction to eliminate. And then if not, if it's a one-step equation, multiplication, division. If it's a two-step equation, we do both of them. All right, let's go ahead and get started with some examples. Again, if you already know how to do this, just solve all the equations and fast forward to the piece where the answer is, just to verify that you did it correctly. All right, number one, we have a plus 5 equals 26. Now this equation is in balance because of the equal sign. So we know what's on the left equals to what's on the right. And we're going to go ahead and solve for a. So what number plus 5 equals 26? We can probably figure that out mentally, but we want to be able to have general steps to do this. In the future, we might not be able just to figure it out mentally, so we want to have those skills to get us there. So again, what's the opposite of adding 5? The opposite would be subtracting 5. So I'm going to subtract 5 on the left side of this equation. But what I do to the left, I'm going to do to the right as well. These cancel because 5 minus 5 is 0. And then we're left with the a equals 21. And that's pretty much it for number one. These are one-step equations. They're going to be very, very simple. Next one, we have an equation in balance. X minus 7 equals 11. What's the opposite of subtracting 7? We're going to add 7 to both sides. What I do to the left of the equals, I do to the right side of the equals. Purpose being to cancel the 7s on the left, free up the x, drop your equals, and combine on the right. Next one, same thing. We have another one-step equation. So only thing keeping m from being on its own to solve for m is that 12, which is being added to it. The 12 is positive, so the opposite of 12 is subtracting 12 on the left and on the right of the equal side to keep our equation in balance. 12s cancel, they're opposites. M comes down, equals comes down, and we combine. This is negative 26. Next one, we have another equation where the 4 is the number that needs to be eliminated in order for x to be by itself and figure out that unknown value. So again, 4 is not being added to x this time. 4 is being multiplied to x. When 4 and x are side by side, that means 4 and the variable are being multiplied. So the opposite would be dividing. And in math, when we show division, we use the fraction bar for this level of math. So we're going to divide the left side by 4 and divide the right side by 4. The 4's cancel because 4 divided by 4 is a 1, which we don't necessarily write. So x is equal to 3, or 1x is equal to 3. And that's the general idea with these one-step equations. I think we have a few more to go. Let's go ahead and look at number 5. Here we have another one-step equation. I know it's a one-step equation because there's one number I need to eliminate, which is a number underneath that x, in order to get x by itself. So we have x over 3, which means x divided by 3. And what's the opposite of dividing? Opposite of dividing is multiplying. So I'm going to multiply both the left side and the right side by that 3 I want to cancel. And then the 3's cancel because 3 divided by 3 is 1. So frees up my x. And 15 times 3 on the right gives me 45. Number 6, we have now something that's called a two-step equation because there are two numbers that I want to eliminate in order for y to be by itself. Remember, I want to rearrange my equation where that 5 and 7 are gone. They're on the other side to free up the y to solve for y. So how am I going to do this? I have a 5 next to the y, which is a multiplication. I have a 7 that's being subtracted. Remember, I always first undo add, subtract, and then second always undo multiply, divide. So I'm going to first do undo the subtraction of 7. So the opposite of subtracting 7 would be adding 7 to both sides of the equal sign to balance my equation. So now I have 5y equals 35. Step 2 is always to eliminate multiplication or division. In this case, it's 5 times y. The opposite of multiplying by 5 is dividing both sides by 5. The 5's cancel because they become a 1. So y equals 7. Let's go ahead and move on to the next one. We have 5y minus 7, and I believe that is a typo. Hold on. Let's go ahead and change this problem. Here's a new one. So I'm going to cross this one out, replace it. So cross that out. We're going to put x over 5 minus 12 equal to negative 4. So let's go ahead and solve this equation instead, since we already did the previous one. So again, always undo addition or subtraction. In this case, on the left side, I am subtracting 12, so I'm going to do the opposite, which is add 12 to both sides. They cancel, so we have x over 5 equals positive 8. Now we're going to undo the multiplication division. In this case, we have division of 5, so the opposite would be multiplication of 5. So I'm going to multiply the left side by 5 and the right side by 5. The 5's cancel because they become a 1, 5 divided by 5, and we are left with x equals 40. Let's go on to the next one. So again, always undo add, subtract first on a two-step equation. So we're going to first get rid of the 18, which is being subtracted with the 5x. Although the 18 here is positive, not negative. The negative belongs to 5x, so we still subtract 18, even though we see that subtraction. So let's subtract 18, and then we cancel these guys. We have negative 5x. Common mistake is forgetting that negative, so make sure you bring down those negatives with the number. That gives me 20. Now I'm going to go ahead and divide by the number next to the variable x because it's multiplying. So negative 5 times x, opposite of multiplication, is division by negative 5. We don't switch the sign when we're dividing, just when we add and subtract, because it's doing the opposite operation. So we divide, we get negative 4. All right, let's get to those last two problems. Try pausing the video and doing it on your own, and then check in the answers after you're done. All right, hopefully you've tried these out already, so let's go ahead and get x by itself on the next one. So this next one might look like a one-step equation, but it's actually a two-step equation, so let's see why. So remember, first we always undo add, subtract, then we undo multiply, divide. So here we have the 8 subtracting with the x, so we're going to be undoing the 8. The 8 is positive, so we do subtraction of x. I'm sorry, subtraction of 8. So then we cancel these out, bring down your x. Hopefully you didn't forget that negative. 8 subtracted from 13, we get 5. Now, my second step here is to get rid of that negative. Remember, technically, there is a 1 in front of this x before the negative. So we're going to get rid of that negative 1 or just that negative. You don't have to write down the 1 if you don't want to, but technically it's there. So we're going to divide to get rid of that negative 1 by negative 1. Because the negative divided by a negative is a positive, and the negatives cancel here. So x equals negative 5. Very similar for this last one. Opposite of adding 3, subtracting 3. Get negative x equals 17. Again, we got to get rid of that negative next to that x. So we divide to get rid of negatives next to a variable, always by an invisible 1. So x equals negative 17. All right, so your work is to go ahead and get practice pages 1 and 2 completed, and then there's the honors page for those of you doing the honors on page, I believe, 10, And that's pretty much it. So go ahead and get started, and good luck.